Here, the remnants of a once bustling community stand frozen in time.
Every last resident was forced to abandon this place after two devastating fires destroyed the majority of the town.
This is the untold story of Bodie, California.
East of the Sierra Nevada, where the winds never stop whispering and winters steal the breath from the land, lies the skeleton of a dream. Wooden homes lean in silence. Windows stare like hollow eyes. This is Bodie, California's most famous ghost town. Once booming with gold and gamblers, now it sleeps beneath dust and memory. A town that didn't just die, it died twice. In 1859, deep in the high desert east of the Sierra Nevada, a man named Bodie struck gold. He wouldn't live long enough to see what his discovery would become. He died in a snowstorm later that year, but his name would linger, reshaped into the word Bodie. What began as a humble gold mining camp on the dusty hills southeast of Lake Tahoe soon began to swell with promise. Rough cabins popped up around shallow mines, but for over a decade, Bodie stayed small. Then, in 1875, something changed. A new vein of gold ore was struck, deep and wide, and by 1876, the camp had transformed into a boomtown. And with it came people, miners, merchants, outlaws. Suddenly, Bodie wasn't just a rumor, it was a destination. This was the first heartbeat of a town rising fast, built not on law, but on luck and ore. And beneath the brittle soil, the gold whispered louder. By 1879, Bodie had shed its mining camp skin. What rose in its place was a fully formed frontier town. Raw, restless, and ruthless, with an estimated 7,000 to 10,000 people. It had become one of the fastest growing and most dangerous towns in the American West. The streets were lined with more than 60 gambling halls and brothels. At the heart of it stood the Standard Mill, extracting riches from rock at an industrial scale. The buildings rose quickly, most made from pine and redwood, easy to source, easier to burn. Families moved in, hoping Bodie might outlast other boomtowns. Yet for every hope nailed into wood, fire waited in the cracks. The wind howled through town like a warning, lifting hats, dust, and rumor. But no one listened. Not while the gold still flowed. Bodie was blazing, in business, in violence, and reputation. It was the kind of town that didn't ask if it would fall. By 1880, just a year after its peak, the cracks began to show. The gold that once flowed like water was now harder to reach. Profits dipped, mines grew dangerous, and people began to leave. Bodie didn't collapse overnight. It began to bleed slowly, like a wound that wouldn't close. In 1882, Bodie's residents built the Methodist Church, the only church still standing today. It was a symbol of hope. Then came the fire. In 1892, a blaze swept through part of town, destroying several structures. It reminded everyone of a bitter truth. Bodie was built of wood. Still, there was progress. That same year, the Standard Company built a hydroelectric plant, one of the first in the country, to power their mill with electricity. But by 1910, the population had dropped to just 698. Empty homes, outnumbered families, the streets that once echoed with boots and gunfire now carried only wind. Bodie was fading, and though it hadn't died yet, it was no longer alive in the way it once had been. By the early 20th century, the gold was nearly gone. The mines, once thunderous with picks and drills, had fallen mostly silent. Businesses shuttered, streets grew quiet. The school, once packed with hundreds, now echoed with empty desks. Then came the final blow, the fire of 1932. It destroyed nearly 90% of the town. Flames devoured homes, businesses, even the once proud Bodie Bank, which burned to its stone foundation. Only a handful of buildings survived, scattered, charred, but still standing against the odds. The last mine shut down in 1942, forced to close under World War II regulations that halted non-essential mining. With that, Bodie's final economic heartbeat stopped. It was the end. By 1950, Bodie was completely abandoned. The once booming town of thousands was now inhabited by silence and ghosts, but strangely, the silence didn't erase it, it preserved it. Inside those homes, furniture remained. Chairs, beds, even bottles on tables, as if the people had left mid-conversation. Time passed, but nothing moved. The town didn't just die once with the mines, it died again with the fire. By the 1960s, Bodie had become what many towns feared, a ghost town in every sense. The last residents were gone. But long before that, in 1915, local newspapers were already calling Bodie a ghost town. The phrase stuck and eventually defined its legend. People began to return, not to live, but to look. Photographers, historians, curious travelers, and what they found was extraordinary. Nearly 200 structures, standing where time had stopped. Houses still holding furniture. The Methodist Church, weathered but proud. Even the gas pump from the 1920s, still sitting silently on its post. In 1962, Bodie was declared a California State Historic Park. That meant no rebuilding, no modern touches, just stabilization. Let it stand as it was, broken, beautiful, and true. Today, the Deschambault Hotel, Standard Mill, firehouse, and jail still stand. The cemetery, faded and windswept, still watches over the valley. Every door that remains shut hides 1,000 stories, and every creaking floorboard whispers, this place lived, then it didn't, and now it simply waits. Bodie may have emptied out, but it never truly went quiet, not when so much was left behind. Inside the homes, tables are still set, curtains still hang, the schoolhouse holds desks, as if the children just stepped out for recess. Chalk still lingers on the board. The museum, built to preserve what Bodie couldn't carry into the future, displays artifacts of everyday life, kitchen utensils, mining gear, letters, photographs. Together, they tell the town's story, not just of gold and fire, but of people, men and women who lived hard, worked harder, and rarely stayed long. But for a while, Bodie was home. The jailhouse still stands, a small wooden cell where many a brawl ended. The firehouse, built in the 1930s, was a last line of defense in a town too often burned. Some windows are boarded, others open to the wind. They call them blind windows, silent eyes to the past. Bodie's cemetery lies on the edge of town, where the dates tell a tale of hard life and early deaths. Everything in Bodie was once touched by life, and now it remains, still, quiet, and slowly fading. But in that stillness, the town speaks louder than ever. Walk the empty streets of Bodie long enough, and you'll start to feel it, the silence, pressing in, heavy and watchful. It's more than decay, more than wind. It's something left behind. Bodie's most famous legend is the Bodie Curse. It's said that anyone who steals even a single rock, nail, or rusted tool from the site will suffer terrible misfortune until the item is returned. The Bodie Museum receives packages every year, envelopes with broken glass, pocketed pebbles, and notes pleading for forgiveness. In Bodie, even the air feels haunted. The town earned its reputation long ago, not just for the tragedies, but for the violence. Bodie was once lawless. Murders, robberies, fatal accidents. They were part of daily life, and many of those souls, it's said, never left. But there's something even more haunting than ghosts here. It's the preservation of everyday life, frozen mid-motion, beds still made, chairs still pulled out, doors left half open. It makes you wonder, Did they leave in a rush? Or did time simply stop? More than a century after its golden days, Bodie still stands, not rebuilt, not restored, but preserved exactly as it was left. In 1962, it became a California State Historic Park, and since then, the goal has been simple: protect it in arrested decay. No new buildings, no artificial touch-ups, just careful stabilization to prevent collapse, to let Bodie age with grace, not erasure. Today, around 200,000 people visit Bodie every year. They walk its dusty streets, try to imagine life here. Not just the gold rush glamour, but the hardship and the risk. Inside some homes, you can see furniture, dishes, even clothing, still waiting. It's not a recreation, it's real. There's even a museum displaying artifacts pulled from the buildings. Bodie is more than wood and nails. It's a time capsule, one that doesn't just tell the story of a town, but of an ERA, the ambition, the failure, the fleeting nature of fortune, here in the high desert of the Sierra Nevadas. The town that died twice still breathes, quietly, slowly, honestly. And for those who visit, it offers something rare, a chance to walk through history, not retold, but untouched. More than 100 years after its fall, Bodie is still here, not thriving, not rebuilt, just standing, weathered, quiet, and real. What once was a gold rush town of thousands is now a collection of empty streets, sun-bleached wood, and frozen moments. But in that stillness, something survives. The truth of how quickly fortunes come and go. There are no actors here, no glossy museum lights, just the remains of life as it was left. A rusted gas pump from the 1920s, school books on dusty desks, tools, chairs, porcelain cups still waiting, in silence. You don't walk through recreation here, you walk through what's been left behind. Visitors don't just see old buildings. They feel the weight of time, the pressure of wind against the glass. The stories are wrapped in every room. Bodie doesn't teach history. It teaches absence. The space where people once stood, the marks they left behind. It's not about gold anymore. It's about what remains when the dream ends, and how, in rare places like this, that past can still speak without words. Against all odds, Bodie is still standing. And perhaps that's what makes it unforgettable.